Okay, so I think they're going to turn me into a meme here. Hi. Okay, so I'm going to very quickly go over context clues and how to do your assignment today. So I'll put both of those things in this one video. All right, so for context clues, remember this is how we determine the meaning of a word within a sentence. So I've come up with a couple clues that I think, or I found a couple clues and strategies for you that I think are most used when we're reading. So we have what we call word busters. Okay, we've used these in class a lot. And so I think that you guys are going to remember these. So a word buster would be that I've seen the word and I immediately can figure out the meaning because of either one of the three things, or there may be others, but these are the three I chose to focus on. The context. So that's, I'm going to go grab my thingamajig and my rain jacket and my rain boots because the sky is looking dark. So you guys know from 3rd grade and 4th grade and 5th grade that you have to infer it's probably going to rain. Well, how are you inferring? Because you've got the clues, rain jacket, rain boots, dark sky. Okay, so we can also infer the meaning of the word thingamajiggy to mean umbrella because you have enough schema that tells you, hey guys, when it's raining, we use an umbrella. Okay, so that's what context clues is. Now your structure or your word parts, that's when we're going to take apart a word. So for example, the word chronological, okay? You know that chrono means time. You guys have known that since we taught that a couple weeks ago or even maybe last year. Chrono means time. Logic means order. So if I put those two words together, I have chronological, okay? And so I've used the structure, so the organization or the makeup of the word to help me determine its meaning, okay? So chronological. Now, if I had the word unrealistic, okay? You guys know that un means not or opposite. You know what real means, okay? Real means it's factual, it's happening, okay? You know what realistic even means, usually. That's a realistic idea that can happen. So we're going to use the not from un and something that can really happen from realistic or real and put those together. And now we've determined the word means not something that can happen or not able to happen, okay? So that's how you use the word part or the structure of a word. Now sounds is like the old game where you do this, it sounds like, okay? So those are words that we read, excuse me, and we oftentimes, maybe there's not a very good clue in the text, or it sounds like another word that we know, so we can at least get close to the meaning. For example, if you have the word diction, okay, what does that sound like? Or dictate, what does that sound like? Okay, so diction has to do with wording, and so we know that the dictionary is full of words. So diction sounds like dictionary, so I'm going to make the inference that diction probably has something to do with words. That's how you would use a sounds like, okay? That's probably the least of the effective ways to get the meaning, but it is a strategy and it can be helpful because I would rather you use a least effective strategy than not use one at all. Okay, so those are word busters. So that's just basically focusing on the word itself or the specific words in the other parts of the text. Now, in the text strategies, so these are things that authors do to specifically help you with words that they think might be challenging or uncommon, okay? Sometimes they'll even break them out and put a definition to the side like you see in a textbook. But in the text, they sometimes will actually provide the definition. So I didn't leave that strategy here for you because I didn't feel like that was new. But they will sometimes leave the definition there for you, okay? Now, the other strategies that I have for you is the restatement. So that's when a word is defined within the sentence or a nearby sentence, or they've just said it a different way. So I often do that when I'm teaching you guys. I will say something like, Make sure you use plenty of punctuation in your writing. Make sure you use periods, question marks, commas, all of those things. So see, I've restated what I was wanting you to do in a different way. You guys may have to do that with your siblings. If they're younger, you'll say, oh, go over and open the dishwasher and get out, a spatula. And they look at you like, what? So you may say, go over and open the dishwasher and get out the hamburger turner, or whatever it may be that they do understand, okay? Now, an antonym is when you do the opposite. So, for example, it's really warm out here. It's certainly not cold. Okay, I've provided the opposite within the same sentence. Okay, so that lets the reader know what warm must be the opposite of cold, because it is this, but it's not that. Okay, this hamburger sure is scrumptious, not like that one I had yesterday that was nasty. Okay, so that insinuates that this hamburger, scrumptious must mean good, because yesterday's was nasty. So that's the antonym. And then an example, a lot of times you'll see for instance, or an example, for example. Sometimes some of these kind of overlap, because when I was telling you the restatement, I used periods and commas and question marks a few seconds ago. That really could be an example as well. So, the example is just letting the reader know this is what I'm talking about, okay? The restatement is another way of saying it. So that's kind of the difference there. But an example, you will oftentimes see a comma and then you'll see for example, or maybe they go on and they continue talking, but they use the example in their writing. So hopefully that kind of helps you understand what those strategies are, because I want you to try to use those when you're reading. And when you come to an unknown word, we annotate our text, and a great thing to do would be to use one of those strategies on an unknown word and just write in the margin, means this, or, circle it and say it sounds like this. And that way you can come back to that and you're not hung up. I've told you guys many, many times, I had a student years ago, they didn't know what potato was. They were reading it and pronouncing it incorrectly. And the whole book was premised around or about a potato farm. So if we're missing that one word every time it comes up, we never have a good, clear understanding of what we're reading. So we have to determine whether words are important or not, and important enough to understand. So we need to try to understand all the words that are unfamiliar to us as we read. And one of the ways to do that is to use context clues. So I want you to try that in your day-to-day readings. Remember, names are not as important. You can always call me Miss W if you can't pronounce my name. That's not going to change the meaning of a text. But other words will change the meaning of the text, or they'll leave you feeling confused because you're not quite sure about something. So just try to use these strategies.
Anna Thomas, if you're in the building, I need to speak to you, please.
Okay, sorry about that. So now let's go on to our assignment and see what we can get done. All right, so for today's assignment, there is an example at the bottom of your page, and it says, astonish, okay? So the word you're going to be working to identify is in the circle as well as bolded in the box. Does it astonish you to learn that in Chinese tradition, the dragon is a sign of good luck? It surprised me. So I would come down to my box, which for you guys, the box is on slide 3. I would come down and type in the box. Astonished means to be surprised. Well, how did I figure that out? So if you'll really surprise yourself, if you ask yourself, okay, does it astonish you to learn da-da-da-da-da? What does astonish mean? Oh, it means surprise me. Well, how do I know that? Well, you might just have it from your schema, and that's okay. But for today, I want you to pretend like you don't know any of these words. Okay, so it surprised me. Well, there's the definition right there. So I chose to put that the strategy I used was in the context because it was in the next sentence. You could choose to say restated it. Okay, that would be acceptable to me as well. As long as you can defend your stance, defend what strategy you used, and it makes good sense, I'm okay with that. All right, so we're going to look at the next one is about the word surgery. The flood caused many injuries. As a result, doctors spent more time than usual in surgery, performing operations. I used restatement here because they said performing operations, which I know surgery has to do with doctors. And then they say performing operations. So I bet it's a doctor performing an operation. So I wrote that definition here. And then for the strategy, I used the restatement strategy because the definition was listed right behind the word. So they restated it with a definition. Okay. You could also choose, I would probably accept an example. Although I do think a restatement is probably the better option. Okay, so for your work today, you're on slide 2. You have your word here. You have the bolded version here. You read this and you determine what the word means. And then you think about what strategy did I use to figure out that word's meaning. Okay, then you come down here and you might, to slide 3, and you would type unexpectedly means whatever it means. Give me a space and then say, I use the word busting strategy because I know that means not and expected means gonna happen. I think I know what will happen. Okay, or I can predict what's happening. Or maybe you choose to say unexpectedly means do not think it's going to happen or wasn't ready for it to happen, something like that. And then you say that he provided an example right behind, or he provided the definition. However you want to do it. I just want to know how you're figuring out the word's meaning by using the text that's around it. Okay? So that's the key to context clues. If you guys are struggling or you have trouble with this, you know how to reach me. So make sure you do that. I don't want anyone to not succeed because you didn't ask for help. So make sure you ask for help and I'll do all that I can to get you that help.